But I think we need to have a chat. We conservatives, Republicans, libertarians, independents, even Democrats who care about this country. What are we doing in our foreign policy? What are we doing with our national security? I'm sorry, when I watch one of my conservative friends on television say, we have no business in Ukraine, there's nothing going on there, stay out of it. As if it's a black and white choice between sending the Marines and doing nothing. I'm concerned. When virtually every Republican I'm listening to sounds like Ron Paul when it comes to national security, I'm concerned. When so many conservatives who know better are fearful of speaking out about what's going on because they don't want to be called neoconservatives, I'm concerned. We conservatives have a strong tradition of supporting law and order, and that includes securing a border, but not exclusively just immigration, but law and order and national security. We conservatives have made the point for decades that if the federal government has one primary responsibility, it's to make sure we are protected. Now, does that mean Los Angeles and San Francisco and New York and Philadelphia? Or is it a little bigger than that in the age of advanced technologies and nuclear missiles and multiple warheads and so forth? Well, I suggest it's a little bigger than that. If we do not stand up for a strong military, second to none, for a military that is capable of fighting 2 wars in 2 regions at the same time, for a 600-ship Navy, that's right, for a robust Marine Corps and Army, for the most cutting-edge jets. We shouldn't be flying B-52 bombers anymore. If we don't stand up for that, if we don't fight for it, nobody will. More and more Republicans and so-called conservatives sound like the anti-war movement marching in the street in the 1960s to me. They're starting to sound like Code Pink. So I'll be the first to step out, as I was last week, and to make something as clear as I know how. This president has thrown away over half a century of hard-fought, costly in terms of American lives and treasure, foreign and military policy. He is destroying our national security structure, just as he's destroying our healthcare system, just as he's destroying our currency, just as he's destroying our financial system. We conservatives need to speak out against this. Not cower in the corner. We can disagree with some of the things George W. Bush did. Hell, I disagree with this democracy project. You can't put a democracy project on societies that aren't civil, that have been each other's throats for thousands of years. That's not what conservatives believe when it comes to national security, but we sure as hell do not believe in isolationism. And that's exactly what's going on. Isolationism dressed up as prudence. It is not prudent to withdraw from the rest of the world, to remove our forward bases. They are there to protect us. So we're not fighting in Los Angeles and San Francisco and New York and Philadelphia and all the rest of the country. We'd rather take them on over there, or not take them on at all. Just have a presence. So we have flexibility. So we have options. So we have choices. I keep hearing, well, we can cut more from the defense budget. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't cut much more from the defense budget. No, we can't. We are degrading our military. We are unilaterally disarming. We are becoming isolationists, and there was always an isolationist wing within the Republican Party, and they were wrong in the lead up to World War II. And Reagan was right. Peace through strength. As I talked about years ago, Vladimir Putin sees a weak president, and so do we. He's right. The Red Chinese see a weak president, and so do we. They're right. Our allies see a weak president, and so do we. They're right. And this is what leads to war. Those who argue and claim that they're for peace, they're setting the stage for war, or a huge conflict short of war. We watch as the Ukraine is being raped, essentially. And we cobble together these phony arguments about why it's okay and it's in Russia's interest, and if we were Russians. We're not Russians. And it's not just Obama. We watched as Georgia was raped and didn't do a damn thing. Well, Mark, what do you want to do? Send in the Marines? Is that the choice, ladies and gentlemen? No, what do I want to do? I want to build up our forces. I want to make our presence known. NATO is becoming an empty suit. Even though NATO is ahead of us. And we are NATO, essentially, trying to stop what's going on in Russia. And just because Russia isn't run by Stalin or Brezhnev or the other dictators that have come and gone doesn't mean Russia is our friend. Apparently, Russia is not our friend. We defeated the Soviet Union, but Russia's back. And the only reason Russia's back isn't because Russia's so powerful. It's because we are becoming weaker and weaker. In terms not of the resolve of the American people, but the resolve of our so-called leaders. I think Bush did a lot, quite frankly, to degrade the military over the course of his presidency. I don't think it was intentional. I think he made some bad judgments. I think this democracy project is ideological, not prudential. There are times to spread democracy when you defeat an enemy, like after World War II, but not during the course of a war in Iraq or Afghanistan. How do you democratize a nation that's still at war? You don't. And you don't make efforts to topple regimes that are not democracies, but are long-time, faithful, reliable, loyal allies. You don't topple them either. This president is doing to our Defense Department, to our national security, to our foreign policy, what he does to everything else. He's destroying them. It took us decades to build up the military. All that investment, gone. It took us decades to build up NASA. All that investment, gone. This president is a disaster. And it's not just this president. It's his party. His party. This is not the party of Harry Truman. This is not the party of John Kennedy. This is the party of Barack Obama. That's what it is. That's what it's become. This is the party of Nancy Pelosi. And who stands up to them within the Democrat Party? Nobody. They never run to the right, ever. Nobody ever announces when they run for president in the Democrat Party anymore, I'm running as the moderate. or the fiscal conservative. No. They keep trying to out-liberal each other, which is getting harder and harder to do. But what are we doing, we conservatives? Is the choice between isolationism and neoconservatism? Of course not. I want you to listen to a brief clip of Ronald Reagan. I understand it's different times. There's not an exact parallel, but I want you to listen to somebody who believed in the strongest military on the face of the earth. And who believed, yes, we have real live enemies. And no, we shouldn't be isolationists like the left have been demanding for decades. Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
Let us be aware that while they preach the supremacy of the state, declare its omnipotence over individual man, and predict its eventual domination of all peoples on the earth, they are the focus of evil in the modern world. It was C.S. Lewis who, in his unforgettable Screwtape letters, wrote, "The greatest evil is not done now in those sordid dens of crime that Dickens loved to paint. It is not even done in concentration camps and labor camps. In those we see its final result. But it is conceived and ordered, moved, seconded, carried, and minuted in clear, carpeted, warmed, and well-lighted offices by quiet men with white collars and cut fingernails and smooth-shaven cheeks who do not need to raise their voice." Well, because these quiet men do not raise their voices, because they sometimes speak in soothing tones of brotherhood and peace, because like other dictators before them, they're always making their final territorial demand, some would have us accept them at their word and accommodate ourselves to their aggressive impulses. But if history teaches anything, it teaches that simple-minded appeasement or wishful thinking about our adversaries is folly. It means the betrayal of our past, the squandering of our freedom. So I urge you to speak out against those who would place the United States in a position of military and moral inferiority. You know, I've always believed that old Screwtape reserved his best efforts for those of you in the church. So in your discussions of the nuclear freeze proposals, I urge you to beware the temptation of pride, the temptation of blithely declaring yourselves above it all, and label both sides equally at fault, to ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire, to simply call the arms race a giant misunderstanding, and thereby remove yourself from the struggle between right and wrong and good and evil.
You know, I have nothing, ladies and gentlemen, but for contempt for what the federal government has become in so many respects in its maltreatment and mistreatment of individual citizens. Nothing but contempt for the refusal of the federal government to live within the constitutional limits. Nothing but contempt for the government to refuse to secure our southern border. And in so many other respects, it's attack on the private sector. It's attack on our currency. It's attack on the economy. But that does not mean we should not stand up to the growing threats and evil overseas that are aimed at our allies and ultimately us. Because just like with the economy, one day we'll wake up and it will be too late. I am not fear-mongering any more than Reagan did. This isn't about a military-industrial complex. This is about throwing off the yoke of Marxism that's spreading in this country and appeasement and isolationism. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I see a nation in decline, and I see people trying to persuade themselves that it's okay. In fact, even more, I see people trying to persuade themselves that it's righteous. So what? Who cares about Russia? Who cares about Georgia? Who cares about the Ukraine? Who cares about Poland? Look on a map. Have we lost our resolve? I'm not talking about interfering in Syria or Libya or Egypt, all of which I personally opposed. No, I'm not. But what about that regime in Tehran that's busy building the bomb and trying to find technology, steal it, to launch long-distance missiles? What about that country? Is that in our national security interests? I would say no. Wouldn't you? Or should we close our eyes to that? The Islamo-Nazis, you think they're a joke? Is 9/11 passed so fast that we can't remember it? They're not a joke. They're mass murderers. And we still owe them a good kick in the nuts. That's right, I said it. Russia. Always a pain in our ass. Let's be blunt. Ooh, excuse my language. Never been an ally. A real ally. What about World War II? A temporary ally. And then immediately, what did they do? They seized half of Europe. We better wake the hell up to this. No, I'm not a warmonger. No, I'm not a neoconservative. I'm a real, live, living, breathing Reagan conservative. I'll be right back.
Conservatism with passion. The Mark Levin Show. Call in now. 877-381-3811.
Look, I know many are earnestly concerned about the increasing police state tactics against we the people. No one has spent more time in exposing that and addressing that and been attacked more for pointing it out and, in fact, offering solutions. But our military hasn't played any role in this. It's all occurring on the domestic side. Not a single military branch has been involved in any of it. In any of it. I am deeply concerned that too many people are being confused by distortions of history from individuals who are also 9/11 truther types. Or individuals who keep telling us to make nice with the Muslim Brotherhood and other terrorist outfits. Or that because Bush looked Putin in the eyes and he saw whatever he saw, a nice guy, I don't know. What were they going to do? Kiss each other? Putin is not Gorbachev. Putin's KGB. That's why journalists have been assassinated. That's why opponents have been assassinated. What's left of them. That's why rock groups have been thrown into the gulags. Call him a communist, call him a fascist, call him whatever you want. He's not one of us. As Reagan just said, they can shave close to the skin, or quoting C.S. Lewis, and I'll add, you can put him in a suit, but he is what he is. They are what they are, and they've demonstrated it. And look how perverse the mindset's becoming in our country. Well, we don't want to start a war. We're not starting a war there. We haven't done anything there. Don't we have alliances? I think we do. Don't we have allies? I think we do. Haven't we encouraged these different countries to be close to us and close to the West and close to Europe? Yes, we have. Well, now they're being pushed around. They're being bullied. And you know what we're sending them today, Mr. Producer? Helmets. Those aren't even defensive weapons. They're helmets. And some other crap that doesn't mean anything. Europe is so pathetic. You know, the Europe Obama wants us to copy? That they're relying on Russia's natural gas. They've put themselves in this position where now they are subject to economic blackmail. And Obama's putting us in this position. Because the Russians have helped finance a propaganda campaign, a lobbying campaign, a political effort to prevent us from becoming energy independent, like with fracking. That's right. And this president, he's just there. Makes these dumb comments, these platitudes. And the response is what? It's dangerous. The Israelis look at this, they're scared to death of this administration. Our Japanese allies look at this, they're scared to death. South Korea, Taiwan, they're all worried about this. What's left of free countries south of our border, they're looking at this saying, holy mackerel. The Russians are going to have how many bases down here? Stephen Harper, who's a great prime minister in Canada, he's looking down south saying, what the hell is the United States doing? I had the same question. We're not the warmongers. We're not starting war. We're not going to war. But we still need to give aid and support to our allies when they're under assault. And yet we won't. And yet we won't. This is new. This is new in modern American history. It really is new. When the Israelis came under brutal attack in 67 and 73, we came to their assistance. We poured an enormous amount of equipment in there. We also warned the Russians. Nixon did in 72, 73, because the Russians wanted to come in, the old Soviets, and he said, no. We went on nuclear alert to stop them. Even LBJ. Obama goes to his library, slobbers all over this guy, who in my view was a sleazeball, but that's beside the point. Even he believed in a strong military. Carter was pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. But Obama's even different than Carter. Obama's obsession with unilateral disarmament, with hollowing out our military, that was bad judgment on Carter's part. It's part of an ideological doctrine with Obama. And that's the problem. And yet I hear some, and by the way, it's a minority, but some out there on TV and radio and on the internet, and some out there and in the Republican Party, they sound like Code Pink. There's something wrong with America. We're going to instigate a war. We're the imperialists. It's pathetic. It disgusts me. We're none of those things. We've had poor commanders-in-chief. We have. Several of them. But that doesn't mean as a matter of policy we shouldn't take steps necessary to ensure that we can preserve the peace for ourselves and our allies. I think this extreme libertarianism that almost falls into Marxism and generally we can call isolationism, that's not conservatism. People who are struggling with these arguments, that's not conservatism. It wasn't conservatism as Buckley espoused it. It wasn't conservatism as Goldwater espoused it. It's not conservatism as Reagan espoused it. It's not. It's something else. And we should denounce it.